when I say all of this argument rests on an ambiguity in the intentionalistic and the constitutive sense. Aren't you aware of something back there? And the answer is yes, but in that case, the awareness is identical with the something I'm aware of. That's the constitutive sense. Whereas the awareness itself presents me with objects and states of affairs in the world. That's the intentionalistic sense. So just to repeat, this is the main message I want to get across, is that the whole tradition is based on a recurring manifestation of the same fallacy. And the fallacy is confusing the constitutive sense of the perceptual vocabulary with the intentionalistic sense. But it won't go away. I mean, Christoph Koch also, I think, has the same mistaken view, the idea that in order to account for perceptual experience, you've got to suppose that what you actually see is not the real world, not the molecules out there, but what you actually see is something going on inside the cortex. That's a mistake. What goes on in the cortex is the seeing, which enables you to see something in the outside world. But you don't see the seeing. That's the fallacy that I was trying to point to. But it is an odd fact, and I don't understand it, about the history of this subject, that none of the great philosophers were naive realists. And it was a disastrous rejection, because it led to all of these attempts to overcome skepticism by these heroic devices, like postulating the distinction between the noumenal and the phenomenal, and the synthetic a priori propositions, and all the rest of it you remember from Kant. But the important thing that I want to get across here is that we start off with the assumption that the world exists independently of us, and that we have a perceptual access to it, and the perceptual access comes by way of a specific neurobiology, but you don't see the neurobiology, and indeed you don't see the effects on the neurobiology. You see objects and states of affairs in the world by way of the neurobiological process. Anyway, I appreciate the question.
If I can add a small note, we must say that the awareness is the one that caused the chair, not the chair caused the awareness.
But I want to say that's a profound mistake. The way that vision science works is that you try to track the stimulus from the time the photons hit the retina until the time they produce a conscious experience. First rule of pedagogy, never write a falsehood on the blackboard, because then you'll see us on exams, and I want to say that's a falsehood. That's not how it works. You don't see a television set in the back of your skull. That's a meaningless fallacy. You see objects and states of affairs in the world, and the reason you're able to do that is because you have a perceptual apparatus that is sensitive to them. When I first got interested in this, in the neurobiology of this, I went out and bought a bunch of the freshman textbooks. And that's the way, by the way, that's a way to learn any subject. You don't have to even get on the web or look at Wikipedia. Go buy the freshman textbooks, because if the freshmen can understand it, you can understand it. And what I discovered is that these guys made assumptions which are philosophically quite stunning, but I think they're right to make those assumptions. So, for example, in one textbook I read, cats see colors differently from the way human beings see colors. And I thought, my God, they've solved the other cat's mind's problems. How do they know that? Have they ever been a cat? Do they know what it's like to be a cat? And the answer is, of course, they can say that, because they know what the cat's color receptors are. You can see, look, this is a cat. Cats are cheap, so they use them for a lot of these experiments. They can see, yes, the cat has a different type of color experience of human beings, and it's conclusive, because the rods and the cones are not sensitive to the same part of the spectrum that human rods and cones are sensitive to. But the whole operation, and by the way, now we know a lot more about it than we used to know, the whole operation proceeds on the assumption there's a real world there, we are real beings in the real world, and the real world impacts on our sensory apparatus. There was a guy at the back.
Well, I'm afraid you kind of partially answered my question. Oh. I wanted to ask about colors, and if you would say that you argue for direct realism, are you directly also aware of?
Yeah, no, again, that's a very deep question. You have to distinguish between the amount of the contribution that human beings make, and the amount to the character of the experience, and the amount that the object makes. Now, in the case of colors, my views are not original, I think. There's a sense in which colors are kind of systematic illusion. We have a visual apparatus that's sensitive to the different light frequencies in different ways. So you get a certain frequency, it looks red. You get another frequency, it looks blue. So the actual facts in the world are that the object reflects light. The facts in us are that we are sensitive to different reflectances in different ways, and colors are kind of systematic illusion. It's not that we're mistaken. I mean, if you're asked, well, what color shirt did the man have on when you were in the court price, you can't say, well, the colors are just an illusion, Mr. District Attorney. No, of course, we're all operating on the assumption that there's a fact of the matter. But some facts are observer relative, and colors are observer relative. Maybe it's misleading to say they're an illusion. Let's just say they're observer